Tools that you will need are scissors, needle nose pliers, a needle threader, clear nail polish, and regular sewing thread. You'll also need the electric flower e-textiles kit. In your kit, you will find the laser cut flower form, the laser cut battery holder, the magnets, neodymium magnets, and the 3-volt battery, the needle, and the conductive thread. So we're gonna set those aside for now. What we're gonna start with right now is applying the magnets, or applying the LED, which was also in here. Hello, LED? It's stuck to the magnet. Putting the magnet through your flower. So on your LED, you'll see a long lead and a short lead. The long lead is positive and the short lead is negative, or ground. So to test that, what you can do is take out your battery, and on your battery, you'll see that there is a positive side and a negative side. And if you slide the LED onto the battery, this is what should happen. You should get a nice glowing, blinking LED that goes through a nice series of blinking. There you go. If you tried to put it on the other way, this is what you'll get. You'll get nothing. So, the first thing that you want to do is carefully push through the LEDs through the flower parts. And you want to make sure to keep the leads separate, and you want to hold the leads kind of close to the fabric. Otherwise, they're just going to bend. What leads are made out of, the metal that it's made out of, is not super resilient. It's a little bit brittle and very bendy. So you want to push that up close to the fabric. There's going to be like these little rough spots you have to get past, and that's fine. And then you want to think about going through the center of the next piece. You're doing the same thing. You're making sure to keep the leads separate. I'm holding them close to the edge. And you want to wiggle them through. See, I'm kind of pressing through with my finger to make sure that I'm just punching the fabric and I'm not just bending the leads all over the place. And you can come back and straighten up the little petals of your flower later. But I want to push that to the end. And then I'm kind of looking where I want this to land. I'm thinking, yes, this is where I'd like it to land. And I'm coming through the center of the next piece and going through the same procedure. Making sure to keep my leads separate and push through. And sometimes it's easier than others. And see how we've got nice little flower separation. And then I'm coming and I'm doing it again. And I'm going through the center of the flower. Keeping my leads separate. And now I've built my flower with my LED in the center. With the leads like this, I'm going to try to see how well you can see that. It's kind of casting a shadow. See how the leads are separate? I'm going to see if I can bring that up, see if the camera will focus. And I'm not good at positioning. In fact, I'm really poor at it. As you can see. I'm learning how to use this camera. For sure. So let's see if it'll autofocus. Yay, it did. There's my leads. So I'm going to bring this back out, wait for the camera to focus again. And so what I want to do is gently but firmly, starting at the base, bend my leads out to the side. So they're now at a right angle to the base. So it's literally sitting flat like this. And then I'm going to take my needle nose pliers. I like these little jewelry ones because they've got a nice round tip. And I'm going to curl back these leads. So I'm going to twist it once and then pull the pliers out and twist it again, always keeping the outside of the plier to the outside. And what I'm doing is creating a nice loop that I can sew to. And I'm doing it again to the other side. And I've created a nice tight loop that I can sew to on either side. And I kind of bend them a little bit, straighten them up. I'm gonna wait for the camera to focus on that. Come on, camera. There we go. You can see those nice tight loops there. The camera is new, so I'm still learning all of its mysterious ways. So now we've prepped this, we have something to sew to. Now we're going to set that aside, and we are going to use our conductive thread to create our battery pack that needs to attach to those flower pieces. So I kind of line them up. I'm like, hey, I know that they're going to line up really well like that. And it's going to look really cute. So I'm going to take one of my leaves and one of my magnets. Now, something to know about these super thin magnets is they're very, very strong, but if you try to put the wrong side together, they will literally flip until the right sides are coming together, and that's important to know. You want to be able to stick to this battery. That's what's important. Getting a good strong hold on that battery is what matters to you. And you don't want to have the opposite sides pushing at each other on the piece, because then it'll want to twist the fabric. So something important to know. It's not so important as you place the first magnet. It is very important when you place the second magnet. So I'm going to get my conductive thread. Now this conductive thread, the one that I'm currently using in the video is stainless steel conductive thread. These magnets are really strong. It's jumped over here. The kind that shipped with yours is probably silver plated, so yours is going to be a little bit easier to deal with than mine. With mine, I absolutely have to use a needle threader. The new conductive thread is just what I could get from the vendor. It's just a little bit better of a bargain. And the vendor that I used for this was Adafruit. And then, so I put the needle threader through my needle. It's probably really hard to see. And then I put it through the loop of the needle threader. And making sure to hold my needle threader very, very, very tight, I pull the thread through. And I pull it down to the end and have like a nice little 6-inch tail, a little bend in it. And now I'm gonna tie, I'm not really gonna tie a knot yet, because I'm going to tie that on my fabric. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my magnet in the center of my battery holder. And I'm going to place one stitch on the outside of the magnet placement. And that's just, I'm just holding the magnet there so I know where to stitch. And I'm going to set that aside again, and I stitch one stitch down, and I leave a nice tail to make a knot with, and I stitch one stitch up. And it's at this point that I make a nice knot. You could try to knot the thread the way that you would like traditional sewing thread, but both this thread and the silver plated thread are a little bit springy, and they don't always hold a knot very well. So at this point, I'm just going to tie a nice square knot in my piece, and I'm going to hit it with a little dab of the clear nail polish. And what this does is it kind of acts as a glue that is non-restrictive, that makes it easier for the thread to hold the knot and controls fray. So later on when this is dry and I go to snip it off, there's not going to be a lot of little conductive fibers flying around, breaking my circuit. Because that's kind of a downer. The kind that I use is a quick dry. It's going to dry quickly. Not instantly, but pretty darn quick. So I'm going to let that dry and just leave that tail there. I'll snip it back later. And now I'm going to go back into the piece. And I'm going to come up the center of my magnet. And I'm going to come back down, sewing over the magnet where I started. And then I'm going to come back into the center of the magnet and out at 45 degrees, approximately. Maybe as much as 90. In through the center, down through the bottom, up through the center, and down through the bottom again. Now what I've done is I've secured it evenly all the way around. I want to wait till that focuses. Hi, please focus. Hello, video camera. Hi. All right, it just doesn't want to focus there for me. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4 places where I've secured it. Now that I've gotten that original bit secured, a little caught on my other parts of the project, I'm just going to come around and do it a couple more times, because I want this to hold really well. We're going to come secure it again with standard thread, but I want this to be very, very tight. This is the magnet that makes contact with the surface of your battery. And I'm just coming up through the center and out to the side. And up through the center, out through the side, until I get to the bottom that's by the stem. Now at this point, I'm going to take an extra stabilizing stitch, because I don't want it to be sliding around off the metal, and I want this to be a nice tight connection. That's one of the things that's really important about this, is having a good connection. If your connections are loose, your piece is going to flicker and it's not going to get consistent power. So I take a couple of stitches just to make sure everything is nice and secure right there. So now with this battery base, and this is the one that touches the battery surface, this is what holds it there. It's going to hold it there really well. So now that I've done that, and I have a nice lead coming off of here, on the back side of this battery, I'm going to do a slight running stitch, and that's just in through the fabric. But when I'm going through the fabric at this point, I'm only going through the top surface of the fabric. There's nothing on the other side. There's no conductive thread on the other side, and this is important. This will help prevent shorts in your project. So I've taken a couple of stitches here, and small stitches are what is going to keep your project nice, and it's going to keep it from having shorts and catches and things that get loose. And I'm kind of putting my hand under here to prevent me going and bringing conductive thread all the way through, because I could feel it if I was doing that. And I'm just taking nice little stitches. And they're not perfect. I'm a mediocre hand sewer, to be honest. I'm much better on a machine. I've just spent more time on machines. So once you get to the end, now you want to go all the way through, because now you're going to make a connection to your piece. Now you don't want to pull it too tight, because then you'll gather it. Then it's going to be all shrinky dinky. You don't want that. So I'm going to come back up and back down to tie off the end, and now I'm going to connect to the piece. Now you have this loop to connect to, but before I connect to this loop, I'm just going to take a nip into this fabric here. I'm going to take a nip into the fabric, and then I'm going to come up through the loop, and I'm going to draw very slowly, because it's easy to get tangled in your petals. Slowly pulling those together, and I've made a nice connection. But that's only one connection to that lead. That's just not nearly enough, and it's not nearly strong enough. So I'm going to come out of that, back into my leaf, back out, it through the metal loop and through some of the flower fabric. Once again, being kind of slow with my thread because it tangles. And I'm going to do that several times until I have nice tight stitches around that metal loop. That's what's really important, is getting nice tight stitches around that metal loop. And that magnet just wants to join the fun. So I've got nice, even, tight stitches. And we are going to reinforce this with some standard thread. But it's super important that you have tight stitches around that metal loop that you created. And I'm, going to do that 5 or 6 times. And when I feel pretty confident that I've got like good stitching around that loop, I'm going to come back up my green thread, my green leaf battery holder, and I am going to tie it off. I'm just tying a basic knot, the same way you would with any hand sewing. I'm going to hold the knot right there. I'm going to take it one more time. Keep in mind, if you rub this thread a lot, both the silver and especially the stainless steel, what happens is it curls like gift wrap ribbon. Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to snip that off. And I'm going to snip it off very close. And it's really important that I don't have lots of little fibers shedding around it. So I'm going to take one clean snip and I'm going to hit it with the fingernail polish. Get the nail varnish right in there. And get that nice and glued down. Now, I've never tested it, but super glue might work as well. I'm not sure if super glue is restrictive. And I'm going to let that dry while I prepare the other side. So, let's see, where did the battery go? Or the magnet go? The magnet actually slid to the other magnet. That's attraction. So this magnet for this piece, actually I like to sew it on the outside of the piece because it's got enough of a pull that it will actually hold your battery through the fabric and make a good contact point. And it also makes it easier to insert the battery and take it out. This is up to you. You can sew both magnets on the inside, but I prefer it one or the other. So I know this magnet's going to be on the outside. So first I have to figure out what's the outside. Now we want the leaves to go like this. There's the leaf alignment. So this is the outside of this piece. Now, see how it's pushing it away? That's because I have the wrong side of the magnet. Now I've got the right side of the magnet. So now I know my magnet placement, which is awesome. And once again, you take your conductive thread and I'm going to start this one on the outside here. Whoops. Which means going down through the outside, back up, fairly close to that, and tying a knot. I'm going to set that aside for now, since I already have my placement set. And now I'm going to tie a knot by getting tangled. You will notice that the magnet sticks slightly to the thread. That's actually a good thing. I'm gonna dab in with my nail varnish. Let that soak in for a sec. Give it a little blow on that. And now, once again, you stitch your magnet. In through the center. Going back out to the same point. In. And out. Opposite side. And you're just sewing around evenly a few stitches until you have a well-placed magnet and you secure it down. So I'm just going to continue to do that. And you want to keep your stitches tight. Once you think you have your magnet down very securely and that you have a good area of thread on this side, this part's pretty important, is you need lots of conductive thread on this side. Because you're not actually touching the magnet to the piece, you need to make sure that there's enough conductive thread over there to make a good contact on the battery. And this is actually a good time to test that. So let's test our battery holder. First, let's put our battery down on that side, battery down on this side, and then we can touch our needle to the contact and it should light up. Hello, light up. Yay. Now I noticed it flickered a little bit, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some stitches of conductive thread just across the inside of this holder, just because I want to make a nice large area that is conductive and tight. So basically it's like you're embroidering a little pad. And just 1 or 2 stitches should be good. Just want to make really good contact with that battery. Once you've done that, I come up through the center again, and you're going to do a similar kind of stitch where you're just coming through the top layer of the fabric over here. Now I'm going to cut this tail because it's just kind of annoying me. Whoa! It's one of the things about working with magnets. It will stick to your scissors. So I'm going to take a stitch here and then back up to set my stitch. And then I'm going to take a few running stitches where I'm going through only the top layer to get to the end. Here we go. I have to be careful at this point because I don't have a lot of conductive thread left here. You should probably have more. I cut this kind of short. But this is plenty to get the project done. So I take a couple of tiny stitches here to set it so that it doesn't gather. And then I'm going to come back down through here. I'm going to set my battery aside. And I'm going to come through the center of my loop, scoop up a bit of fabric, and carefully and slowly draw my thread through. I'm going to sew a few times through the loop so that I have really great contact with the loop and through the base of the flowers. Going slow once again to avoid catching petals, but still making great contact with the metal loop. But you can barely see at this point because it's just all covered in stuff. It's all buried in that fleece. But that's okay, as long as you're making good contact. If you want, this is an awesome time also to test it, because you can slide your battery in and see if you get light. And if you do, then you're in a great place. Whee! So at this point you could decide to put the magnets on the outside or the inside. It looks like I sewed these opposite, even though I know I lined it up before on the inside. That's okay. You can flip them and just flip the orientation of the leaves, and you're still good to go. Your circuit's still complete. In the meantime, you need to finish sewing the piece. So I'm going to take the battery out, set it aside. Keep in mind that I only put the battery in after I know it's dry. Now my needle came unthreaded, so I'm going to thread that again.